What's up, guys? Welcome to Bible study. This week we're going to be doing Ecclesiastes 2 while we walk through the entire book of Ecclesiastes. Last week we did chapter 1 and I hope you guys enjoyed it. And this week I've broken everything down. I got all my stuff here. We're going to talk about chapter 2. I've got my Bible. I've got the New Revised Standard Version Updated Edition. I've got the Amplified Bible. I have my study Bible that accompanies my own personal Bible. And then I got all my notes. And I'm very excited to do this Bible study with you guys. I'm learning a lot. The reason I study this before I do the Bible study for you guys is so that I can have a better understanding of what this book is about, so that I can have more to offer in this study to provide more from my own wisdom and experiences in my own life. So without further ado, before we jump in, let's pray. Dear Lord, I just want to thank you for this setting. Thank you for this wonderful Bible study and all the eyes that are on me. But please let them hear your voice and not mine. And let's have a wonderful Bible study. Good reads today. Thank you, Jesus. In your name I pray, amen. All right, let's get started. Ecclesiastes 2. So I'm going to go ahead and start and read off. There's 26 verses in this book. I'm just going to read them all and then we'll go line by line and break them down. And then I'll use the study Bible to help break it down even further and then read from certain verses from the Amplified Bible to break things down even further. All right, Ecclesiastes chapter 2. The title of this section is The Futility of Self-Indulgence. I said to myself, "Come now, I will make a test of pleasure. Enjoy yourself." But again, this is also vanity. I said of laughter, "It is mad," and of pleasure, "What use is it?" I searched with my mind how to cheer my body with wine, my mind still guiding me with wisdom, and how to lay hold on folly, until I might see what was good for mortals to do under heaven during the few days of their life. I made great works. I built houses and planted vineyards for myself. I made myself gardens and parks and planted in them all kinds of fruit trees. I made myself pools from which to water the forest of growing trees. I bought male and female slaves and had slaves who were born in my house. I also had great possessions of herds and flocks, more than any who had been before me in Jerusalem. I also gathered for myself silver and gold and the treasure of kings and the provinces. I got singers, both men and women, and delighted of the flesh many concubines. So I became great and surpassed all who were before me in Jerusalem. Also my wisdom remained with me. Whatever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them. I kept my heart from no pleasure, for my heart found pleasure from all my toil, and this was my reward for all my toil. And then I considered that my hands had done the toil I had spent in doing it, and again, all was vanity, and chasing after wind, there was nothing to be gained under the sun. The next section, starting at verse 12, this is wisdom and joy to the one who pleases God. So I turned to consider wisdom and madness and folly, for what can the king's successor do? Only what has already been done. Then I saw that wisdom excels folly as light excels darkness. The wise have eyes in their head, but fools walk in darkness. Yet I perceived that the same fate befalls all of them. Then I said to myself, what happens to the fool will happen to me also. Why then have I been so very wise? I have said to myself that this is also vanity, for there is no enduring remembrance of the wise or of fools, seeing that in the days to come we will all have been long forgotten. How can the wise die just like fools? So I hated life, because what is done under the sun was grievous to me, for all is vanity and a chasing after the wind. I hated all my toil in which I had toiled under the sun, seeing that I must leave it to my successor, and who knows whether he will be wise or foolish, yet he will be my master of all for which I toiled and used my wisdom under the sun. This also is vanity. I turned and gave my heart up to despair concerning all the toil of my labors under the sun, because sometimes who is toiled with wisdom and knowledge and skill must leave all to be enjoyed by another who did not toil for it. This also is vanity and a great evil. What do mortals get from all the toil and strain with which they toil under the sun? For all their days are full of pain, and their work is a vexation. Even at night their minds do not rest. This is also vanity. There is nothing better for mortals than to eat and drink and find enjoyment in their toil. This also I saw is from the hand of God. For apart from him, who can eat or who can have enjoyment? For to the one who pleases God, who gives wisdom and knowledge and joy, but to the sinner he gives the work of gathering and heaping, only to give to one who pleases God. This is also vanity and a chasing after wind. I told you guys that was a long one. There's 26 verses on that one, but that's fantastic reads. There is a third section that the Amplified Bible breaks down concerning work, and they labeled it the futility of labor. So without further ado, let's break this down line by line. I got a lot out from this study, so my hope is to just help you guys learn and understand it more and help relate to King Solomon here, because this stuff is real. So let's start with verse 1. All right, so I said to myself, come now, I will make a test of pleasure. Enjoy yourself. But again, this is also vanity. So for verse 1, my study Bible says that earthly pleasures cannot bring eternal satisfaction. The more that you indulge in it, the deeper your walk with God, the more you'll realize the lack of value that it has. So basically, living for earthly pleasures is all but futile. It's futile. There's no lasting satisfaction in indulging in earthly pleasures, no matter what it is. Nothing here is everlasting. Nothing ever here can fulfill your soul. And you can do all of these things, but it's important to do them with God. And there's no value in whatever you pursue if God is not in it. And so that's why you see so many people, they're out in the world, they're just doing whatever they can to fulfill their navel, whether it's indulging in work or relationships or just pleasures for themselves. Or money is a good one too. People are just so focused on what they can do and what they can get for themselves. They don't bring God. God is nowhere to be found in their life, and so they're chasing after all of this stuff. They're seeking for lasting satisfaction, and these things cannot bring them. There is satisfaction in them, but these things are not the end all be all. That would be God. God's the source for everything. And in the Amplified version, it says, I said to myself, come now, I will test you with pleasure and gratification. So enjoy yourself and have a good time. But behold, this too was vanity, futility, meaningless. There's no great ending to the things and the pleasures of the world. And so we have to be very careful, because we could get wrapped up in the things that we enjoy in life, and we could forget to bring God along on the ride. And we forget that God wants to be a part of everything. He wants to be along with the ride. He loves you. He wants to be a part of every crevice of your life. And recently, I've learned to bring God along with everything, because sometimes it can feel like whatever you're pursuing, there are certain things you don't think God cares about, but no, that's not true. God cares about everything. And so one practice that I've been learning recently is every thought that comes to my head that I feel has some significant meaning, whether good or bad, I bring it to the Lord. I surrender it to Him, and we have conversations about it and try to break things down even further, so that I can know what's worth, because we have thousands and thousands of thoughts. I think I read one time or heard that we get at least 70,000 thoughts a day. That's crazy. Most of those thoughts have no real meaning and no real purpose. So breaking down the ones and bringing God into the equation, so much better. And the same thing is with whatever you're doing, especially if you're seeking lasting satisfaction. God is going to be the only source that will bring that to you. And if you're bringing him along with the ride, it's going to be so much better for you. Verse 2. I said of laughter, it is mad, and of pleasure, what use is it? So there is no lasting fulfillment in earthly pleasures. I just said that. Pleasure can bring happiness, but again, it's fleeting, it's futile, and it will not provide lasting satisfaction. So that he's just capitalizing on that. Verse 2 in the Amplified, it says, I said of laughter, it is madness, and of pleasure, what does it accomplish? Again, it doesn't accomplish anything. Verse 3. I searched with my mind how to cheer my body with wine, my mind still guiding me with wisdom, and how to lay hold on folly, until I might see what is good for mortals to do under heaven during the few days of their life. King Solomon explored the fulfillment through worldly pleasures, while guided by his wisdom. Even though humans' lives are like vapor, he genuinely wondered if these pleasures provided any true sustainability. He ultimately concluded that all was vanity, meaning what's the use of all of this if it doesn't bring us any lasting satisfaction? That's basically what he's saying. Verse 3 in the Amplified Version. I explored with my mind how to gratify myself with wine, while at the same time having my mind remain steady and guide me wisely. Ooh, that's good. How to take control of foolishness, that's good, until I could see what was good for the sons of men to do under the heaven all their days of their lives. That's really good. So if you use your God-given wisdom, you can see what's worth anything in your life. All the things that you do, all the things that you pursue and go after. Verses 4 through 8 are clumped together, so I'm just going to read them all and then I'll break those down. So, I made great works. I built houses and planted vineyards for myself. I made gardens and parks and planted them in all kinds of fruit trees. I made myself pools from which to water the forest of growing trees. I bought male and female slaves and had slaves who were born in my house. I also had great possessions of herds and flocks, more than any who had been before me in Jerusalem. Verse 8. I also gathered for myself silver and gold and the treasure of kings and of the provinces. I got singers, both men and women, and the delights of the flesh, many concubines. So Solomon is just simply listing all of the worldly possessions that he's had. And while all these things are good, there's an end to all of them. They don't bring any lasting satisfaction. Verse 9. So I became great and surpassed all who were before me in Jerusalem. All my wisdom remained with me. Whatever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them. I kept my heart from no pleasure. My heart found pleasure from all my toil, and this was my reward from all my toil. That was verses 9 and 10. So despite whatever Solomon had, he still had his wisdom while he had all his earthly pleasures, which is says a lot more than for most people in the world today. People have a lot of worldly pleasures and they don't have the accompanying wisdom that goes along with it, because if you don't know how to steward the blessings and the gifts that come from heaven, then you're not going to know how to manage them. And so you're going to constantly be seeking satisfaction and not knowing why these things are not bringing you everlasting satisfaction, because nothing is going to be able to keep you sustained and happy, especially if God's not involved. In the Amplified, verse 10 says, whatever my eyes looked at with desire, I did not refuse them. So he didn't hold anything back. Whatever he wanted, he went after. He pursued whatever he wanted. I did not withhold from my heart any pleasure, for my heart was pleased because of all my labor. So he was proud of the work that he did. I mean, if I was him, I would be too. And the work that I do, I'm proud of it. But, again, God has to be involved. And for this was my reward for all my labor. My study Bible defines the word reward as a blessing from God, which is totally true. Everything that comes under the sun from heaven is from God. Whether we want to believe it, whether we realize it, everything is a gift from God. Everything. Verse 11. Then I considered that my hands had done all the toil that I had spent in doing it, and again, all was vanity and chasing after wind, and there was nothing to be granted or gained under the sun. So Solomon's conclusion here was that all was vanity. Everything is here today and gone tomorrow. And literally everything is temporary. Everything that you see before your very eyes will pass away. And so again, that word vanity comes up, futile, meaningless, like a vapor. And so in the Amplified, it says, then I considered all which my hands have done and labored to do, and behold, all was vanity, chasing after the wind, and there was no profit, nothing of lasting value under the sun. All pass away. If we could have that mindset as Christians, I think we'd be able to live better, just having that head knowledge that everything passes away. And that's why, it's crazy out in the world today. So many people value things that are literally not going to be here. You can drive a very nice BMW, you could treasure it, you get a new car, and it could be your life, and it could be your baby, but literally somebody could come along tomorrow and wreck it, and then what? It's totaled, and then it's gone. So that's a reason not to idolize material items like that. And things like cars, I know that's a basic example, but things like cars and material items, those aren't things that we should be seeking anyway. We should be going after God. We should be seeking the kingdom of heaven, because once you do that, as it says in Matthew 6:33, if you seek the things of the kingdom, everything else is going to be added to you. So, but it's hard enough in the world, especially as Christians. It's the world doesn't understand this concept, but we as Christians should know better, and we are held to a higher standard. It's not fair, but unfortunately, these are the cards that have been dealt to us, and this is what's required to us from our Father. So, just be careful not to fall victim to idolization, and be careful not to treasure your work over your spiritual life and spending time with God. And don't treasure anything over your relationship with God, because that should be the number one thing in your life. Let's move on to verse 12. It's a new section. In my Bible, it says, wisdom and joy given to one who pleases God. And in the Amplified version, it just says, wisdom excels folly, which is true. Basically, wisdom is better than foolishness. Verses 12 and 17 are linked, but I'm still going to go line by line. So verse 12, so I turned to consider wisdom and madness and folly, for what can the king's successor do? Only what has already been done. So basically, everything has already been done, right? No matter what era you live in, from hundreds and thousands of years ago to now, and to the people that are going to come before us, wisdom, there's going to be wise people and there's going to be foolish people. And it says here, for what can the king's successors do? And we're all just going to do the same things. There's nothing new. Remember in Ecclesiastes 1, it says there's nothing new under the sun. So whatever the previous king, the next king's just going to do the same. The Amplified version, it says, oh, I turn to consider secular wisdom, madness, and folly. For what will the man do who succeeds the king? Nothing except for what has already been done. So wisdom and joy are given to the one who pleases God. And everyone, all the kings that live to please God, they'll have the ultimate wisdom. And if there's a king that surpasses him that's foolish, they're going to do the stupid things that, previous foolish kings have done. And so really, it's all just an endless cycle. Verse 13. Then I saw that wisdom excels folly as light excels darkness. So Solomon is basically saying that he's frustrated that even though wisdom is great as it doesn't prevent us from like fate. And in verse 14 and 15 it says, "The wise have eyes in their own head, but fools walk in darkness. Yet I perceive that the same fate befalls all of them." So what is our fate? Well, our fate is death. It doesn't matter if you're wise, it doesn't matter if you're foolish. We all are gonna die. And so Solomon is frustrated that, he has all of this wisdom, but what good is it if he has the same fate as one who is foolish? And I totally understand that. And as I was studying, I kind of asked myself the question of like, wow. And so to have godly wisdom or to live a life of foolishness. And even though we have the same fate, I would much rather live a godly life full of godly wisdom than to be a fool my whole life. Because then I just live with vapor. And with all that wisdom, I get to go live a life with the king. And, I was also thinking too that like, there's a parable in the Gospels where Jesus says that like there's people going to work, there's people that have been invited to work, people start like very early in the morning, and there's people that filter in throughout the day, and there's people that come to work later on in the day, like when there's only a couple hours left to work, and they get the same rate as the people who started very early in the morning. And the people that started early in the morning, they were upset. They were frustrated that they got the same rate because they had been slaving away all day working, and they didn't think that it was fair. To be honest, it's not fair. But everything that comes from heaven is from God. And so the Gospels, Jesus, is for everybody. So if I'm a foolish person and I'm like 80 years old and I come to Christ and I have 2 full good years of life with Christ and compare that to somebody who's been walking with the Lord for 4 decades, that person doesn't have a right to be upset because Jesus is for everybody. It doesn't matter. If anything, the person who's been walking with the Lord for longer should have compassion for the other person and feel sorry that, be obviously grateful that they came to Jesus when they did, and, just be glad that, they weren't the one that came late to the game and they had all this time to live with Christ. So, things in life happen, they're not fair. But there's nothing we can do. It's all out of our control. It's all in the hands of God. And there are things in this life that are not going to make sense to us. But we do have a right to be frustrated. It sucks. It sucks to live in a world when you're living for God, when you're a wise person, and you're filled in a world full of foolishness. And we're all going to die anyway. It sucks. It's not fair. It shouldn't be this way, but unfortunately it is. So... all right, so next up we have verses 15. "So I said to myself, what happens to the fool will happen to me also. Why then have I been so very wise? And I said to myself that this is also vanity." Verse 16, "For there is no enduring remembrance of the wise or of fools, seeing that in the days to come will all have been long forgotten. So how can the wise die just like fools?" So Solomon is questioning why he's wise, and is he just going to have the same fate as a fool? He concludes wisdom also is vanity, just like foolishness, which is very deep, is also very profound, because, we're all going to pass away. So the wise will be forgotten, just like, my study Bible says the wise will be forgotten just like fools. Why it's so vital to live for God, to live a godly life. This verse also emphasizes the equality of the temporary nature of humans and their accomplishments and fate. Wow. Verse 17. "So I hated life because what is done under the sun was grievous to me, and for all is vanity and chasing after the wind." My study Bible says it defines Solomon's hating life as he was disillusioned with life, which is disappointed and depressed. which totally makes sense because, as I mentioned before, it sucks, it's unfair. And my study Bible also notes for this verse, elsewhere, where life is positive, despite the vanity, he notes that all pursuits in life, the labors and accomplishments, all of it is vanity, which sounds very morbid, but it's true. This next section, verses 18 to 26, which brings us to a close, all of it is grouped together, but I'll just very quickly go through all of it line by line. Verses 18, I hated all my toil, which I had toiled under the sun, seeing that I must leave it to my successor. Verse 19, and who knows whether he will be wise or foolish, yet he will be a master of all, which I toiled and used my wisdom under the sun. This also is vanity. Verse 20, so I turned and gave my heart up to despair concerning all the toils of my labor under the sun. Verse 21, because sometimes one who has toiled with wisdom and knowledge and skill must leave all to be enjoyed by another who did not toil for it. This also is vanity and a great evil. And I'll stop there and analyze verses 18 and 22 real quick. So in the Amplified, again, this is futility of labor. My study Bible says that business and wealth can be left to ones like the heirs and children of those who work for these things. All these things are left, like wealth and businesses are left to these people, to the people that come after you, and it can either bring pleasure or despair, and these people didn't work for them. And all of it is just given to them, and they didn't work for it. Again, unfair. It also says, no one but God will know who will be in control of all of the wealth that is left to them. It is unknown if their heirs, children, will be wise or foolish, but will regardless still maintain control, which, if you ask me, that's not fair, but that's just how life goes. Generations are left whatever comes from the previous generation, whether you worked for it or not. Solomon caused his heart to despair all of his work because of this. It brought him pain, and I totally agree with that. It would bring me pain too, to have all my life's accomplishments because of my children who could turn out foolish, and one false move, everything could be gone, all my hard work, which is why it's vanity, because it's all a vapor. Study Bible also says that, and Solomon says that it is vanity, and it also is a great evil. My study Bible says that evil, because humans cut off by death do not reap the good that they sow, and that this verse also showcases the frustrating unfairness of futility of human labor and the unpredictable distribution of wealth under the sun. All work will benefit others. So this is real stuff, and I would hate for the people that come after me to just wipe out. And there's countless stories in the Bible where certain kings would reign and they devoted their lives to God, and then there would be 2 or 3 kings that were God-fearing men, and then there's 1 or 2 foolish people that come after them, and then their land is destroyed. Everything that they had worked for their whole life was gone. And so it's a game of life, and unfortunately we don't have a choice in the matter. Verses 22 and 23, what do mortals gain from all the toil and strain for which they toil under the sun? For all their days are full of pain, and their work is a vexation. Even at night their minds do not rest. This is also vanity. So basically, labor is unavoidable. We all have to work, right? But its reward or value is elusive from a limited human viewpoint, meaning that we can't see all of the benefits, the purposes behind all of our work. We can't see that. Only God can. We have a limited perspective of the questions and thoughts that only God has the answers to. So only we can be left pondering, which is, we can talk to God about it. He's not going to tell us about it. It's not likely. If we're still struggling with this as a society, all these years later, the odds of him divulging that information to us is very, chances are in the toilet. So We have a right to ask these questions, by the way, but it doesn't mean that God will answer them. And 22 and 23 in the Amplified Version, for what does a man get from all his labor and striving and sorrow of his heart which he labors under the sun? For all his days and work is painful and sorrowful, even at night his mind do not rest. This too is vanity, worthless. And it's crazy because a lot of us, we live in a hustle culture, and a lot of us are about the grind. And it sucks. I know for me, I've grinded my whole adult life, and to think that it could all just be gone, it's like, what's the point, right? Verses 24 through 26. So there is nothing better for mortals than to eat and drink and find enjoyment in their toil. This also I saw is from the hand of God. From apart from him, who can eat or who can have enjoyment? For to the one who pleases him, God gives wisdom and knowledge and joy, but to the sinner he gives the work of gathering and heaping, only to give the one who pleases God. This also is vanity and chasing after the wind. This is crazy. My study Bible says that a modestly positive but realistic answer to Solomon's question in verse 22, when he said, what do mortals get from all the toil and strain for which they fall under the sun? So Solomon constantly associates enjoyment with both work and play. And this verse emphasizes the capacity to find joy and satisfaction in work and pleasure because they are gifts from God. And these are good things because they're God-given, and these are experiences and blessings from God, and we can't find true joy and satisfaction in them without God, as I've been saying this whole time. Solomon is saying that this cycle of the one who pleases him, God gives wisdom and knowledge and joy, but to the sinner, he gives the work of gathering and heaping, only to the one who pleases God. So this cycle, he's suggesting that true satisfaction comes from relationship with God and his blessings and those who live according to his will. So it's very important. He's pretty much saying the same thing this whole time. You got to bring God into stuff. You have to. And make sure that you're doing it with a pure heart because you love God, not because you have to. And that is our reads today. I know this was a long chapter. Thank you guys for sticking in. I hope you learned something today from Ecclesiastes 2. And feel free to like, subscribe, comment. If you have any questions, please let us know. And we'll see you for study number 3 coming next week.